This is my WWE Hell in a Cell 2009 pay-per-view review. This was actually a pretty decent pay-per-view outing from WWE. Overall, I would say it's kind of in between. I don't know if you would either call it an average pay-per-view tour, maybe a solid, maybe a good overall pay-per-view, because there were a few matches that were good, but obviously the one thing that I'm going to say already, even before I even get into talking about any of the Hell in Cells, obviously everyone knew there wasn't going to be any blood on this pay-per-view, so if that's pretty much the only criticism that you can say, this pay-per-view is bad because it didn't have any blood, that's, just straight idiotic if you, say that, because whether the matches had blood or not, it wouldn't have been any different. You would have seen pretty much the same type of matches. Sometimes blood does add to it, like it did at WrestleMania 13 with Bret Hart and Stone Cold, but you don't necessarily need blood in every single match, but that's probably going to be a lot of people's criticism of this event, which going into it, everyone already knows that you're not going to see any blood, so you shouldn't even expect to see it anyway in the first place. Now, the opening matchup, it did start off with the first of the 3 Hell in a Cell matches. It was CM Punk versus Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Championship. And this was a good match. This was a step up from their match they had at Breaking Point, but the same thing kind of like at Breaking Point, it was a fairly short match. This was about maybe an 11 to 12 minute match, but it was better than last month. You did see CM Punk get in some good offense in this match at the beginning for about maybe the first 5-6 minutes. Did go back and forth. They did the typical, punch back and forth, yay and boos from the crowd. And they did utilize the cage, considering this was a fairly short match. They did utilize the cage pretty good. CM Punk does lose the match and loses the title to Undertaker after Undertaker. He first hits him with a last ride, then a choke slam, then ends the match with the Tombstone Piledriver. I thought what you saw in it was good, but it was one of those matches that you wanted more from it. So overall, I enjoyed the match, but it could have been a whole lot better. Should have been given, another 5 to 10 minutes. But the one thing you got to think of is, Undertaker at this point in his career, he's so banged up from injuries, which that's the one thing you got to kind of question WWE for even giving him the title. If he's so banged up and he really can only do, a 9 to maybe 12 minute match, do you really want him to be World Heavyweight Champion? But maybe, since he won't have to wrestle too much on SmackDown, maybe just put him in tag matches up until the next pay-per-view, and maybe have him in some, tag match at the Bragging Rights pay-per-view, something like that. But he's definitely going to need to have to do something to heal up from his injuries, and maybe not do too much on SmackDown. But it was a good match. I'll give it 2 3/4, but like I said, it should have been a little better than what it was. Obviously, a lot of people were expecting it to be great, but you could even tell after the match when Undertaker was walking up the ramp, Undertaker was pretty much limping to the back, so obviously he's really banged up, and it's kind of questionable WWE giving him the title with that, but I don't have no problem with him having the title. Hopefully, he at least keeps the title for some time, and hopefully he heals up from his injuries, and we see the Undertaker-type quality matches that everyone is expecting out of, an Undertaker and CM Punk feud. Then the next matchup was for the IC title, the Intercontinental Championship, John Morrison versus Dolph Ziggler. And this match, it started off decent and slowed down a little bit. The one thing that did kind of hurt this match was the crowd was not into this match at all. It was pretty much dead silence in this match. John Morrison, he did try his best to make this match entertaining. Obviously, a lot of just do not buy Dolph Ziggler as a credible, wrestler right now. It's just haven't seen anything with him. Does have a sweet insecurity. That's the one thing I will give him credit for. He does have that, but other than that, doesn't really have much. And within this match, saw some decent stuff. It wasn't a bad match, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't up to last month's pay-per-view, but SummerSlam's match with Dolph Ziggler against Rey Mysterio, where Rey Mysterio really pulled a good match out of him. And just the crowd wasn't into it. Like I said, that kind of, hurt the match a little bit. And John Morrison does retain the Intercontinental Championship after hitting Starship Pain. Wasn't a bad match at all. I would say it's a decent match. I'd give it 2 1/4 stars. Then the next matchup was for the Divas Championship. It was Alicia Fox versus Mickie James, and really this match wasn't anything at all. Really the only thing to even talk about this match is the ending of this match, where it looked like somewhat of a botch from Mickie James, where she wasn't really able to pick up Alicia Fox for her spiked, or not a spiked DDT, but her just DDT finisher. And kind of during this, either they did it very good and made it look very devastating, or it was a complete botch, because it really looked like Alicia Fox got herself injured in this match, legit. Other than that, it's really all that happened in this match. I would give the match, one star, maybe 1 1/4 stars. Really wasn't anything. I think most people were expecting going into this match you weren't going to see anything at all anyway. Then the next matchup was the shocker of the night, how good this matchup was. This was Chris Jericho and Big Show Jerishow teaming up to take on Batista and the returning Rey Mysterio for the Unified Tag Team Championship. And this was a surprisingly good match. This was probably one of the top matches of the night. I would say maybe this in the main event, that's probably what you would say is the main matches of the night. This was a very good tag match. They booked it very good. They booked it very smart, because the one thing that you wanted to do with this match was make sure Big Show and Batista really didn't do too much with each other in the match. They really didn't. You did a lot of good back and forth stuff with Rey Mysterio and Chris Jericho. You always know them against each other, you're always going to see some great action. Big Show and Rey Mysterio, you can do the big guy versus small guy. That always works, and them two have very good chemistry, so that worked very good. And even Jericho and Batista, Jericho and Batista, they actually work pretty good with each other. Not great, but they work pretty decent with each other. And Big Show really didn't do too much in this match, and it was a fairly enjoyable match, and a lot of good back and forth stuff, a lot of entertaining stuff. And the way the match ends was outside the ring, you saw Batista. You saw Big Show and Batista outside the ring. Jericho got thrown out to Big Show. Big Show kind of caught Jericho. Then you saw Batista spear him. Then Big Show got back in the ring a little after that, and you saw him and Rey Mysterio kind of go back and forth for a little bit. Then Rey Mysterio was going for his springboard West Coast pop onto Big Show, and Big Show caught him with a punch in mid-air. So pretty good at finish of the match. I really don't like the whole Big Show knockout thing. This is actually the one time it actually came off very good, and Rey Mysterio sold it very good. And Big Show and Chris Jericho do retain Unified Tag Team Championships. I would give the match 3.5 stars. Might be overrating it a little bit, but it was a very enjoyable match, I thought. Then the next matchup was Randy Orton versus John Cena in a Hell in a Cell match, second Hell in a Cell match of the evening for the WWE Championship. Now, the one thing that I had a huge problem with this match was they never used the cage in this match, really. They used it a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 spots, but not that much at all. This was pretty much like they weren't even noticing they were in a Hell in a Cell. It was like them just doing a regular, typical match between each other. You did see them brawling back and forth in the ring, back and forth action. And what they were doing was actually pretty good. It was an enjoyable match, but the one thing that really hurts it, when you got a Hell in a Cell, when you got a match like a Hell in a Cell or a cage match, you have to utilize the cage, and that's the one thing that really, drags this match down. Like, if they would have used the cage, maybe done some things outside the cage, utilized it and stuff, maybe this match would have came off better. That was the one thing that really hurt the match. And Randy Orton wins this match, and especially the ending of the match. The ending of this match kind of hurts. Randy Orton wins the WWE Championship by defeating John Cena with the Punk kick in the head, and the kick just looked, looked very bad from the live when it was first live. When they showed a replay after the match, it didn't look as bad. Like when it was live and when it happened, it looked like John Cena just moved out the way and Randy Orton barely even touched him. Whereas when they showed another camera angle from it, it looked very good and came off pretty good. But then after the match, even worse was you had John Cena pretty much get up not very quickly after the match. Maybe because obviously he didn't get kicked as hard as Vince McMahon or anything, but still, that thing, that's the one thing under Randy Orton that, you're supposed to have wrestlers sell a lot, the whole punt kick in the head, and just came off bad right there. I don't know if they'll have another match at the next pay-per-view, but what they did in the match was good action, but not utilizing the cage really hurt, and the ending was very, very weak. I would give it 2.5 stars. Like I said, not utilizing the cage and the weak ending hurt the match overall. What they were doing before that, if they would have utilized the cage and had a better ending, probably would have been, a 3.5 star match, maybe even better, because they definitely both have good chemistry with each other. Just kind of bad booking in this match, I would say. Then the next matchup was pretty much an added match to this pay-per-view was R-Truth versus Drew McIntyre. This was a fairly short match at the beginning. They went back and forth with each other, and Drew McIntyre won by defeating R-Truth with the double underhook DDT. Obviously, going into this, obviously you knew Drew McIntyre was going to go over in this match, and this was a thing they were building up on SmackDown for a little while, but it's very, one of the matches that shouldn't be on a pay-per-view, I don't think. I think this is something that should have been resolved on SmackDown and not a pay-per-view, even though they have been building it up for a little bit. But it was kind of good seeing R-Truth on pay-per-view. I actually don't mind Drew McIntyre. Just his finisher, he does need to get a better finisher. Looked a very weak finisher. Match-wise, I give it 2 stars. It wasn't bad. It was watchable. Then the next matchup was the three-way for the United States Heavyweight title. The Miz versus Jack Swagger versus Kofi Kingston for United States Heavyweight title. And this was one of those triple threat matches that just didn't come off very good at all, I don't think. These type of matches are kind of hard to book. There's very few of them that actually come off very good. There's just a number of them you can even count up that actually turns out to be very good. And I just don't think these three worked as good as what I was expecting. I was expecting a whole lot more from this match. And then the match comes when the Miz gets picked up for the Dr. Bomb by Jack Swagger. Jack Swagger hits him with the Dr. Bomb. Jack Swagger's about to go for the pin on the Miz, and then Kofi Kingston hits him with that Trouble in Paradise, or not even Trouble in Paradise. He hit him with the just hit him with a kick and then pinned the Miz. So Kofi Kingston's still the United States Heavyweight Champion, which is the thing they just get the title off him. I know he's over with the crowd, but someone like The Miz, if you want to do something with him, he really desperately needed a win on this pay-per-view. He desperately needed something like the United States Heavyweight title to get any credibility within WWE. Then the main event of the evening was the DX versus Legacy Hell in a Cell match. This is the one thing, I don't think this should have been a main event, even though going into it, it was one of those things that, okay, this is the one Hell in a Cell match on this pay-per-view that actually makes sense going to that route, but I think they should have had one of the title matches as the main event. But with the weak finish of John Cena and Randy Orton, maybe it was best to have DX and Legacy because it was the best out of the 3 Hell in a Cell matches. At the beginning, when DX was coming to the ring, about to get in the cage, Legacy attacked him from behind. Then pretty much for a little while, before the match even officially started, before they actually got into the cage, you saw them brawling over the arena. That was pretty good. Triple H got pretty much put out of this match for a little bit when Legacy, Ted DiBiase, and Cody Rhodes were both on the stage and hit Triple H with a double DDT on the stage. Triple H was out for a little bit. Then they got Shawn Michaels in the ring, locked the cage door behind him. The match started. It was pretty much a handicap match for a little while. And then Triple H got up a little after that, and Triple H was trying to get into the cage, trying to, pull the cage door open. Wasn't able to do that. Then he went to the back. You saw Shawn Michaels in the ring doing a lot of very good stuff with Legacy. One very sick spot where Cody Rhodes was holding a chair to Shawn Michaels' head, and Ted DiBiase, while the chair was in place on basically where Shawn Michaels' head was, hit him with not a DDT, but a drop kick. Very sick spot right there. Triple H came back out, had bolt cutters, got into the cage that way, and then you saw them pretty much dominate Legacy for a little bit. They threw Ted DiBiase out, then locked the cage door behind him, which was one of the things I don't think they should have done. Was after you had it be a handicap match for a while, and you had them Shawn Michaels working in there. I think it should have been a tag team match all the way to the end after Triple H busted back into the cage and just locked the door behind him and did something like that, because that was the one that hurt it a little bit, but it's still a lot of very good action in here. Then DX pretty much, after they did that, pretty much beat up Cody Rhodes back and forth for a little bit. Then at the end of the match was Shawn Michaels hit the super kick to Cody Rhodes, while at the same time Triple H had a sledgehammer in his hand, and while Shawn Michaels hit the super kick, Triple H hit him with the sledgehammer. So pretty much a sledgehammer and a super kick combo for the win for Shawn Michaels and Triple H to go over, pinning Cody Rhodes. And it was a good Hell in a Cell match, best Hell in a Cell match of the evening, 3.5 stars. There were a few things that could have probably been a little better. Maybe, they should have had, after that, after Triple H was able to, get back into the cage, just have it be a tag team match, not a handicap match, pretty much for the whole entire match. But did see some very good stuff. Shawn Michaels did some great stuff with Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase. I think they, really with this feud, both of them, before this DX feud, not that many people really took them serious as a tag team, and now it's like, I really don't want them to break up now. I think they could actually drag it out for a little bit longer, but there is going to be some point by the end of the year that you're probably going to have Ted DiBiase turn face, just because it's one of those things you're going to have to do at some point or another, and plus you got the Marine 2 movie, so you're going to want to kind of capitalize that at some point in the future. 3.5 stars for the Hell in a Cell match with DX and Legacy. Overall, I would give the pay-per-view a 7 out of 10, mainly because of the DX and Legacy match was pretty good. I enjoyed it, and the tag team match with Batista and Rey Mysterio versus Jerishow was very good and very surprising how good it was. And the Undertaker and CM Punk match, it had some good stuff in it for it being only an 11-12 minute match, but should have been longer. But I can't really blame that on WWE or blame that on their booking. Undertaker's pretty banged up at this point, so understand why he couldn't go any longer. And Cena and Orton had some good stuff in it, but the problem with it was the ending was very weak, and they didn't utilize not the steel cage, but the Hell in a Cell within the match. So like I say, give the pay-per-view a 7 out of 10. I would say it's not one of those pay-per-views this is a must-see, but if you do check stuff out from it, check the DX and Legacy match out, and definitely check out the Unified Tag Team title match, because that was very, very good. And yeah, that's it for my WWE Hell in a Cell 2009 pay-per-view review. All right, peace. This is my WWE Hell in a Cell 2009 pay-per-view review. This was actually a pretty decent pay-per-view outing from WWE. Overall, I would say it's kind of in between. I don't know if you'll either call it an average pay-per-view tour, maybe a solid, maybe a good overall pay-per-view, because there were a few matches that were good, but obviously the one thing that I'm going to say already, even before I even get into talking about any of the Hell in Cells, obviously everyone knew there wasn't going to be any blood on this pay-per-view, so if that's pretty much that you're not going to see any blood, so you shouldn't even expect to see it anyway in the first place. Now, the opening matchup, it did start off with the first of the 3 Hell in a Cell matches. It was CM Punk versus Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Championship. And this was a good match. This was a step up from their match they had at Breaking Point, but the same thing kind of like at Breaking Point, it was a fairly short match. This was about maybe an 11 to 12 minute match. The only criticism that you can say, this pay-per-view is bad because it didn't have any blood. That's, just straight idiotic if you, say that, because whether the matches had blood or not, it wouldn't have been any different. You would have seen pretty much the same type of matches. Sometimes blood does add to it, like it did at WrestleMania 13 with Bret Hart and Stone Cold, but you don't necessarily need blood in every single match. But that's probably going to be a lot of people's criticism of this event, which going into it, everyone already knows. Last ride, then a choke slam, then ends the match with the Tombstone Piledriver. I thought what you saw in it was good, but it was one of those matches that you wanted more from it. So overall, I enjoyed the match, but it could have been a whole lot better. Should have been given, another 5 to 10 minutes. But the one thing you got to think of is, Undertaker at this point in his career, he's so banged up from injuries, which that's the one thing you got to kind of question WWE for even giving him the title. If he's so banged up, but it was better than last month. You did see CM Punk get in some good offense in this match at the beginning for about maybe the first 5-6 minutes. Did go back and forth. They did the typical, punch back and forth, yay and boos from the crowd. And they did utilize the cage, considering this was a fairly short match. They did utilize the cage pretty good. CM Punk does lose the match and loses the title to Undertaker after Undertaker. He first hits him with a